In the heart of the city, the mayor's office buzzed with tension. The mayor, a charismatic leader known for his dedication to public service, faced an unprecedented crisis. His only son, Alex, had vanished without a trace. Just days before, laughter echoed through their home as they prepared for a community event. Now those echoes were replaced by silence and worry. The family was thrust into the spotlight, with reporters camped outside their residence, clamoring for updates. Alex was not just the mayor's son. He was a beloved figure in the community, known for his volunteer work and infectious enthusiasm. His disappearance sent shockwaves through the city, igniting fear and uncertainty among residents. Parents clutched their children a little tighter. Friends whispered in hushed tones about what might have happened. The mayor's name became synonymous with despair rather than hope. As hours turned into days, the police investigation stalled. Officers filed reports and conducted interviews, but progress was painfully slow. Frustration mounted as the mayor watched the bureaucracy unfold. He felt helpless in a situation that demanded urgency. With each passing moment, panic twisted deeper into his gut. Amidst this turmoil stood Wahlberg, an enigmatic figure with a reputation for navigating the city's darker corners. While others waited for answers from law enforcement, Wahlberg understood that time was of the essence. He felt a pull to act, not only for Alex but also to protect a community teetering on the brink of fear. In his mind, there was no choice but to dive headfirst into the shadows of the city's underground, determined to uncover the truth before it slipped away completely. As the days stretched on, the mayor's anxiety turned to frustration, with the police department's lackadaisical response to Alex's disappearance. Officers shuffled paperwork and conducted interviews, but their efforts felt disjointed and ineffective. While the city was gripped by fear, the police seemed mired in bureaucracy, more focused on protocol than on urgency. The mayor watched helplessly as time slipped away, each hour amplifying the sense of dread hanging over his family and constituents. Despite mounting pressure from the public and media, the investigation appeared stagnant. The mayor's calls for updates were met with vague reassurances that they were doing everything possible. This only deepened his unease. He knew that every second counted, yet the officers seemed to be caught in a web of red tape. Citizen frustration bubbled over as neighbors speculated about potential leads, only to be met with silence from those sworn to protect them. The mayor organized press conferences, pleading for any information about his son, but each event added layers of desperation without yielding results. Community members gathered outside City Hall, holding signs and chanting for action. It was evident that trust in the police was waning. People began to question their capability to handle such a critical case. Amidst this growing unrest, Wahlberg observed from the sidelines. He could sense the undercurrents of fear and frustration among citizens, and he understood that while officials stalled, lives hung in the balance. With every delay from law enforcement, Wahlberg felt an even stronger urge to leap into the shadows of the city's underground. Time was running out for Alex, and he couldn't afford to wait any longer for help that might never come. Wahlberg stood at the edge of the city's dark underbelly, a place he knew all too well. A figure shaped by hardship and grit, his past was a patchwork of mistakes and survival. Once a promising athlete, he had spiraled into obscurity after a series of wrong choices, leaving him with scars, both visible and hidden, that told tales of his battles. Yet amidst the shadows lurked determination. He'd grown adept at navigating the city's murky depths, developing connections with those who operated outside the law. With his rugged exterior and sharp instincts, Wahlberg exuded an aura that commanded respect among the outcasts and criminals. He was a ghost to some, a myth to others, a force they both feared and admired. His life experience had taught him that when institutional help falters, one must rely on their own strengths to forge ahead. The recent events weighed heavily on him. He couldn't shake the image of Alex's worried face from his mind. The boy had once volunteered alongside Wahlberg during community cleanup days, eager to make a difference despite his father's status. That memory ignited a flicker of hope within Wahlberg, the kind that stoked the fires of purpose. As desperation grew in the mayor's office, Wahlberg felt an electrifying urgency swell within him. Rather than allow fear to paralyze him, he resolved to act swiftly. He knew what lay beyond the facade of the city. Whispered secrets, hidden alliances, threats lurking in every alleyway. Fueled by both guilt and resolve, he took his first step into the unknown, ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead in pursuit of Alex. His mission, not just for himself, but for a community desperately in need of answers. As Wahlberg leaned against a graffiti-covered wall in a dimly lit alley, the weight of inaction pressed heavily upon him. The police's inability to make progress tugged at his conscience, igniting an inner fire that demanded he take action. He stared into the shadows, recalling his fleeting moments with Alex, days spent cleaning up parks, sharing laughs about silly pranks, and discussing dreams that felt limitless. It struck him. Alex wasn't just the mayor's son. He was a kid with hopes and aspirations that deserved protection. In that moment, Wahlberg made a choice. He would not wait for the bureaucracy to unravel. Too much time had already lapsed. With frustration boiling within him, he recognized that traditional methods were failing them all. Each day lost meant more potential danger for Alex. That realization transformed his resolve into a powerful urgency, a desperate need to act. He took a deep breath, shaking off doubts about his capabilities. Wahlberg knew the city's underbelly better than most. It was a network of secrets, fears, and hidden truths where whispers carried weight. He began mapping out his approach, considering allies who might help him unveil what the police could not uncover. Fueled by desperation and memories of Alex, Wahlberg dove into his contact list of informants and acquaintances from less-than-legal ventures. Tonight they would talk. He would shake down every lead, every shadowy figure, even if it meant stepping on toes or risking violence. In doing so, he would shatter the confines of the law if necessary, because saving Alex was worth all the risks he would face along the way. With clarity of purpose igniting a fierce determination within, he stepped forward into the darkness. Wahlberg's journey into the city's underground began with a step into a shadowy bar, hidden from the mainstream world. The air was thick with smoke and whispered secrets, the kind of place where reputations were forged and broken with a single exchange of currency. He traversed through dimly lit corners, each step echoing the determination within him to unearth information about Alex. His first contact was a grizzled informant known as Murmur, who operated on the edges of legality. With a reputation for trading in valuable intelligence, Murmur was someone Wahlberg had encountered before, a man who preferred whispers over shouting. Over clinking glasses and muffled conversations, Wahlberg leaned in closer, his voice laced with urgency as he shared the unfolding tragedy that propelled him into this realm. As they spoke, Wahlberg picked up snippets about various factions vying for control of the city's darkness. Gangs with interest in exploiting vulnerable children and opportunists ready to profit from chaos. Murmur hinted at an elusive figure called the Broker, a powerful player rumored to have information about Alex's whereabouts. Intrigued yet wary, Wahlberg knew he had to tread carefully. Every faction operated under their own violent rules. Determined, he pushed further into the web of underground contacts that seemed endless. A street artist with ties to local gangs, an ex-cop turned doorman at a seedy hotel, each serving as a thread unwinding the tapestry of information about what lay beneath the surface. Each encounter brought Wahlberg closer but also deeper into a world fraught with peril. Armed with pizza-sized doses of courage and desperation, he steeled himself for whatever truths awaited him in this gritty arena, ready to dismantle whoever stood in his way to find Alex. Wahlberg's relentless pursuit of information led him deeper into the city's underbelly, where danger lurked in every shadow. As he followed leads from Murmur, he crossed paths with gang members who guarded their territory fiercely. In a dimly lit warehouse, a known haven for illicit deals, Wahlberg confronted a group of hardened thugs who were more interested in intimidation than conversation. "Who's asking about the Broker?" one of them sneered, brandishing a knife that glinted in the low light. Wahlberg's response was swift. Fueled by resolve and desperation, he lunged forward. The fight that ensued was brutal, a flurry of fists and flying bodies that echoed against the concrete walls. Wahlberg's instincts, honed by years of navigating perilous situations, kicked in as he struck back, determined to force answers from his attackers. Emerging from the melee bloodied but undeterred, he realized this wasn't just about information anymore. It was a test of will against those deeply entrenched in the city's criminal web. Each confrontation escalated the violence surrounding him, making it clear that stakes were higher than he'd anticipated. He dealt with another corrupt official who had been skimming funds and was rumored to have connections to Alex's whereabouts. A tense standoff ensued in an upscale bar where the official manipulated his power like a chess piece. But Wahlberg's fury outweighed any fear. "You think you can play both sides? You're wrong," Wahlberg growled, cutting through the official's bravado. After a few tense moments and a strategically placed shove that sent chairs clattering, vital information spilled from the man's lips like a defeated pawn. With each encounter leaving chaos in his wake, Wahlberg moved closer to unraveling the mystery surrounding Alex, but at what cost? The line between savior and destroyer blurred as he plunged further into the depths of violence, knowing every risk brought him closer to finding the boy. As Wahlberg pressed on through the underground network, the fallout from his actions began to manifest in unmistakable ways. The bruises and broken bones he left behind shifted the perception of him from a man on a noble quest to a destructive force wreaking havoc in the city's dark corners. The once shaky alliances he had forged now felt strained, as whispers of his recklessness spread like wildfire. Criminal factions, initially willing to share information, started turning their backs, wary of the attention Wahlberg's violent methods drew. He'd stormed into a local gang's hideout, seeking answers about Alex, but the resultant brawl not only resulted in pain for those involved, but also disrupted the fragile peace that existed among rival groups. The thugs now eyed him with suspicion rather than camaraderie, fearful that his relentless pursuit would draw unwanted scrutiny from law enforcement. In his fervor, Wahlberg had also left shattered deals in his wake. A key informant had cut ties after Wahlberg's heavy-handed tactics resulted in the loss of a lucrative trafficking operation. When it became clear that loyalty had its price, Wahlberg was reminded that trust was paramount in this shadowy world. Alliances were formed and broken according to the whims of self-interest. Yet amid this emerging chaos, a new tension brewed. Allies began to distance themselves, fearing retaliation or collateral damage. With each confrontation escalating not only in violence but in consequences, Wahlberg found himself increasingly isolated. While his determination to find Alex burned bright, he realized that the path he'd chosen could as easily obliterate the very foundation of community connection needed for his mission. In the heart of this turmoil, the lines were sharply drawn. Would he emerge as the savior of a child or an unstoppable demolition crew tearing apart everything in his path? As Wahlberg's quest spiraled into chaos, the toll on his personal relationships became increasingly apparent. Friends and allies who once stood by him began to pull away, their concern morphing into fear for their own safety amidst the violence that followed in Wahlberg's wake. He could see it in their eyes, the hesitation to associate with a man whose methods now included brutality and intimidation. One evening he found himself face to face with Lena, a childhood friend who had once been a source of support and laughter. She had always believed in his potential to do good, but as she looked at him now, her expression was a mixture of disappointment and worry. "Wahlberg, you're losing yourself in this madness," she urged, her voice trembling. "This isn't who you are!" But Wahlberg's resolve was clouded by desperation. Each time he lashed out or disregarded the consequences of his actions, he felt the distance grow between him and the people who had once stood beside him. Even Murmur, the informant he had come to rely on, had begun to show signs of apprehension. The once friendly exchanges turned cautious, with Murmur insisting Wahlberg tread lightly in a world where reputations could change overnight. As Wahlberg pressed on, he realized that the very connections he needed to aid his search for Alex were fraying at the seams. The ghosts of broken friendships haunted him, reminding him that his aggressive approach was alienating those he needed most. In his quest to save Alex, he found himself risking everything, not only the boy's safety, but also the very relationships that had anchored him in the past. Would he continue down this path of destruction, or could he find a way to reconcile his methods with the bonds he so desperately needed? The choice weighed heavily on his soul as the clock continued to tick down. The climax of Wahlberg's investigation erupted in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place shrouded in darkness and whispered rumors. The air was thick with tension as he confronted a group of gang members reputed to have connections to Alex's whereabouts. Armed with information gathered over countless risky encounters, Wahlberg felt the weight of desperation pressing on his shoulders as he stepped into the lion's den, ready for a showdown. "Where is he?" Wahlberg demanded, his voice cutting through the murky atmosphere like a knife. The gang leader, a burly man known as Razor, smirked, clearly enjoying the power dynamic. "You think you can just barge in here and make demands?" he retorted, his menacing grin revealing a set of gold teeth. A violent negotiation ensued, with each side trading heavy threats and veiled promises. The tension escalated rapidly as Wahlberg struggled to maintain control over the situation. Just when it seemed that blows would be exchanged, Razor leaned closer, his demeanor shifting from taunting to tentative. "You want your precious kid back? You're gonna need to play nice with the broker," he sneered, dropping a bombshell that left Wahlberg reeling. The revelation complicated everything. Not only did Wahlberg need to find this elusive broker, rumored to be dealing in human lives, but he also realized that aligning with such a figure could lead him further down a dark path. As Razor's words echoed in his mind like a death knell, Wahlberg had to confront the harsh reality. Pursuing Alex might require him to compromise his own moral code. This moment crystallized for Wahlberg, a crossroads between saving Alex and becoming entangled in the very shadows he had fought against. As he stood surrounded by hostile faces and flickering shadows, he knew every decision from here on would have dire consequences. In the aftermath of Wahlberg's desperate and violent pursuit to find Alex, the city found itself divided on how to perceive him. Some hailed him as a hero, a man willing to go to extreme lengths to rescue the vulnerable son of a beloved mayor, while others condemned him as a reckless force of destruction whose methods would ultimately inflict more harm than good. News of the chaos he left in his wake spread quickly, and media outlets buzzed with contrasting narratives. Stories of Wahlberg beating information out of gang members mixed with reports of his narrow escapes from police confrontations, sparking heated debates about justice and morality. In neighborhood bars and community centers, locals debated whether the ends justified the means. Had Wahlberg become a necessary evil in a system that had failed them all? Or was he simply perpetuating the cycle of violence that plagued their city? As Wahlberg stood before the mayor and a throng of reporters in a press conference meant to reassure the community that Alex was safe at last, he felt the weight of scrutiny upon him. The mayor, grateful yet conflicted, acknowledged Wahlberg's role in retrieving his son, but struggled with the cost of those actions, both physical and moral. "I can't deny what you've done," the mayor said, his voice steady but heavy. "But we must ask ourselves, how do we restore trust in our community when fear has taken root alongside heroics?" It became evident that Wahlberg's journey had not only brought Alex back, but had also exposed deeper fissures within society's fabric. As he faced lingering glances of both gratitude and disdain, Wahlberg realized that he would forever be marked by this quest, a testament to both his relentless determination and perhaps an unorthodox approach that blurred the lines between savior and villain. Only time would tell whether he could reconcile his actions with the hope for a more just future. As the dust settled from Wahlberg's tumultuous journey through the city's underbelly, he found himself in a different landscape, both within himself and the community he had fought to protect. The missing boy was safe, but the scars of his actions lingered like an unshakable shadow. Wahlberg reflected on how quickly intentions could spiral into chaos, and how, in his pursuit of justice, he had danced on the precarious edge between savior and destroyer. The city now bore the marks of his violent methods, leaving neighborhoods divided between gratitude for Alex's return and fear of the methods employed to achieve it. He had ignited a conversation about morality that reverberated through the streets, challenging residents to question what justice truly meant. Was it worth sacrificing relationships and safety for a singular goal? In the heart of urban life, where vigilance often battled chaos, Wahlberg realized that his relentless determination had not only reshaped his own identity, but had also altered the fabric of the community. As he walked through familiar streets, Wahlberg encountered wary glances and murmurs. Some spoke of him as a hero, while others whispered cautionary tales of destruction. The realization struck him: he could not be both a guardian and a harbinger of unrest. In seeking to restore safety for Alex, he had inadvertently sown seeds of discord among those who once stood united. Wahlberg understood now that true vigilance did not come from brute force but from fostering trust and understanding among those around him. As he contemplated his next steps, he recognized that healing would require more than just salvaging broken trust. It would demand a commitment to rebuild connections strained by fear and violence. The road ahead would be long, but Wahlberg was determined to find a way forward that embraced both justice and community harmony, striving to emerge not just as a figure marked by chaos, but one who could lead through reconciliation instead.